Hello, how are you doing today?
Fine, and yourself?
Pretty well, thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
It's good to have you back. So, the last time we spoke, we had done a 24-hour recall and we had also done a nutrition assessment. And from that, I've taken some of that information and plugged it into a evidence-based nutrition track. And this records your macronutrients as well as any micronutrients that you may be exceeding or deficient in. And this just helps me determine what we need to do in terms of suggestions throughout this session. So, I'd like to question you on if you know of any sources that are great for fiber, calcium, and healthy fats.
Bread is high in fiber, some breads. Fats, healthy fats, I'm not really aware of. Maybe you can help me with that. And calcium, like your milks and cheese.
Hey, thank you. That's very good. So, now I'd kind of like to talk about your calories, protein, and your fat, as well as fluid needs. So, in terms of calories, it looks like you are getting about 933 calories a day based on your 24-hour recall, but we want to try to aim for about 1,837 kcals a day based on what I have calculated for your age and for your gender. So we are a little low in that area, but I'm not too concerned because I noticed that you were on a diet for weight loss called the Food Fuels diet.
Yes.
And that diet is not restrictive in any way. It looks like it tries to implement your fats in terms of healthy fats, which we'll talk about later today. It tries to implement carbohydrates as well as protein sources. And so I'm really happy to announce that I don't believe this is a poorly educated diet. I feel like it's pretty it's implemented pretty well for you. In terms of personal trainers, I noticed that there's a few on that website, but I don't know that they're certified nutritionists or registered dietitians, so I'm not sure how they'll aid you throughout this course, but I'll be here to help you as well. So no worries with that. So in terms of protein, I did calculate your protein needs to be about 47 grams per kilogram per day. And it looks like on your ESHA track that you're getting about 53.7 grams of protein a day. So that's excellent. I just wanted to positively point that out because a lot of people don't meet those needs, and it doesn't look like you are a vegetarian or vegan. So if you were, then I might have a cause for concern with that. And you're also eating protein bars, so I think that those choices are very well selected. And then for fluids, you're getting about 5 cups of water is what you suggested per day. I know you mentioned you don't drink coffee or tea or sodas, and I think that that's excellent. The only suggestion I may have is to try to increase the fluid to about 8 cups of water a day rather than 5. And these can be implemented at any time of the day. So I think it's something super simple that we can try to work on for the next visit.
Could I use like additives in the water? Like, they have those flavored pouches.
I think you could. I think as long as it's not something that's overly sugary. So like Kool-Aid, I know they have Kool-Aid packets you can put in there, but I wouldn't recommend ingredients like that. Rather than maybe like a
These
Crystal
are like
Light.
in the tea aisle. They're just, you add them in water.
Yes, I think those would be perfect to add, especially if you're not much of a water drinker. You want to try to incorporate that into your diet. Thank you for asking. That's a great question. So we talked about your calories, we talked about your protein, we talked about fluids. Are there any questions you have for me at this point?
What would be like healthy snacks that I could have, that aren't like natural sugar? like most of your fruits, I like sugar, of course, have the natural sugar in it, so it's not good for me either. But something snack that would be good, but not cause my numbers to be too off balanced.
I think that natural sugars are not a bad thing. So, in terms of fruits, I always suggest whole foods over processed foods. I think that they have so many more nutrient opportunities to offer throughout the day, but I don't think that they're bad in any way in terms of the sugar content. Uh, but if you were so you want to look to reduce your sugar intake?
Well, I crave sugary stuff,
Okay.
but
Okay.
that's a lot of my weight gain issue
Sure.
is sugar.
Sure.
So I kind of wanted something a little sweet, but the healthier, and I didn't know if fruit would be okay for that.
I think fruit is an excellent idea. Yeah, I don't really have a concern with that. I feel like as long as and of course, I don't think having a cake or a cookie every now and then is going to harm you either.
Right.
So,
I just don't know when to stop sometimes.
sure, it's very much up to your discretion. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank
asking, though. That's a very. I'm glad to see that we're discussing those in terms of your weight loss goals. So, also, I didn't know if you exercised often. We didn't really discuss that the last time we met.
Not a lot.
Okay, because I did notice that, uh, you know, about 2 hours, trying to aim for about 2 hours for your age a week of aerobic exercises. So those could be walking, cardio, swimming, biking, things like that may also aid you as a tip for your weight loss.
Thank you.
So, and after we've discussed some of your macronutrient needs, I'd like to go into some of the things that I found that were deficient, that don't meet the recommended dietary allowance guidelines for individual healthy people. So for fiber, you were getting about 6.4 grams based on your dietary recall, and for women, it's about 21 grams per day. So I noticed you were pretty low on that, but that's okay because we have plenty of foods that we could offer to help balance that out for you. So I do have a list if you would be willing to kind of look at this list and just check off which ones you think could be high in fiber. And there's no right or wrong answer, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So, in terms of your calcium needs, that was another issue that I found. So, you were getting about 650.3 milligrams of calcium a day, and the recommended is about 1,000 milligrams a day. So, that fell a little short. But again, it could have just been that you didn't have a lot to eat the day that you did the recall. So maybe that's not how you eat every day. So,
right.
But I did bring a few food models to show you for some calcium sources. And I also noted that you do not tolerate milk. So I wanted to also discuss some milk sources that are alternatives to that. So things like nut milks, they've got almond breeze, silk milks, they even have soy milks on the market. And so those are some really good things as long as they're fortified with calcium. I would suggest maybe looking at the label for that. Okay. But we do have cheeses, milks, and even something like some fortified orange juice of some sort. They do make them fortified with vitamins A, D, and calcium. And like you said at the beginning, grain sources are really great, not only for calcium, but for fiber as well. You might be surprised to find that even broccoli has calcium in it. So those are just some really good food sources that I would suggest maybe implementing if you're not already into your diet and you happen to like them.
Right.
So we talked about fiber, we've talked about your micronutrients, we've discussed calcium. I'd also like to talk about fat. So I noticed on your EHSA track that you had noted, or that it was noted that you are getting about 23% saturated fat, and we want about 10% or less of saturated fat. So saturated fat isn't a very healthy or kind to your body, should I say, fat. And so today I do have a handout for us to kind of go over in terms of choosing heart healthy fats. So on this table you'll see a list of healthy fats, and then if you flip it over you'll just see a list of unhealthy fats.
Okay.
And what I would like, if you would be willing to,
Okay.
is to look at these two tables very briefly, take as long as you need, and try to see if you can recall at least 2 healthy fats and 2 unhealthy fats after viewing this this model here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Quite a bit there.
There is a lot. So could you identify at least 2 healthy fats for me?
Walnuts and
it's okay if you...
what else I seen on there. I was trying to target what I might eat. Peanut butter.
Okay, that's perfect. And then 2 unhealthy fat sources.
Margarine and donuts.
Okay, thank you. Wow, my memory's not that great, so that's perfect. So, in terms of fat, I think what we could do there is, you did happen to have pizza, and regardless of whether pizza's homemade or frozen, that's ideally a high-fat food option, and that's really all that you had to eat that day as a major food source. So I think maybe that was the problem within that day, and I don't see this as an ongoing progression of a high amount of saturated fat intake. But if it is, solutions that you could do is when you're in the grocery store, maybe look for the labels in terms of where it says trans fat. We want a lot of foods that say 0 grams trans fat, and usually it'll say it right on the beginning of the label. And the label will also state how much saturated fat it has, and I would suggest looking for, rather than looking for solid fats, try to aim for oils. Okay. So could you name like a vegetable oil that you would be willing to try?
Canola?
Canola oil could work. Other sources could be like avocado oil, or a really common one, olive oil. Those are really lower in saturated fat than the butters and margarines out there.
Yeah, I've heard of people cooking with olive oil. You know, their meat.
Sure, yeah. So at this point, I just want to know if there are any questions that you have for me.
Okay, I've been looking at protein bars. What should I be looking on? There's so many out there on the package.
Sure, yeah. I noticed that you do eat protein bars. You like the peanut butter protein bars, and it seems like a relatively healthy selection. So if you'd like to keep eating those, I think that would be a great choice. But I noticed that protein powders and protein bars have a lot of whey protein in them, and that is a form of dairy, and I'm not sure that you're, noticed that you said that you don't tolerate milk that easily.
Right.
but I also noticed that you eat yogurt, which has dairy in it. So I don't think it's necessarily an allergy concern as much as it is you just don't like the consistency of the product. But I would say watch for whey protein in protein powders and protein bars, and any additive ingredients that you you can't spell, or you can't,
Most of them are so similar but I'm just curious what a healthier one
Sure.
would be. Sometimes I get kind of burnt out on the peanut butter.
Absolutely. I have heard of Luna bars. Those are really great for women, especially, and I think they're targeted for women. There's also Cliff bars out there,
Okay.
and that might help with the sweet tooth as well, because they have chocolate ones. They've got peanut butter ones, but they're made with like fruits rather than
Okay.
the additive ingredients. So maybe look for a few of those brands. And I did note, in terms of fat, that you are taking omega-3 fat supplement.
Yes.
I think that's an excellent selection. I'm really excited to see that in there. That's absolutely a healthy fat. So it seems that you do have a knowledge base, very well so, of the fiber, calcium, and healthy fats. It's just a matter of maybe that day wasn't enough to show the results from the track. So I really think that by the next time we meet, we could address these concerns fairly simply, without any hesitation. So are there any other things that you'd like to talk about today before we wrap the session?
Did you say my cholesterol was high also?
Your cholesterol was fine. I don't have a note of any lab work values. I just have a note of some of the nutritional related concerns that you ate that day.
Okay.
Of course, cholesterol is something that we can watch for next time. But if I could have you, before you leave, I would like to see a goal that we could work on together for our next session. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah.
So if you'd like to take a moment and just kind of write down any kind of goal you have.
There you are. There's a couple.
All right, weight loss of 115 pounds, healthy snacks without sugar, exercising more. I think that those are really, really well thought out goals, and I think that we could most definitely work on this as a team together.
Great.
Is there one that you feel is the most prominent at this time for the next time we meet?
I think the one I need to work on the most is the exercise.
Okay. I will make sure we take a note of that for our next session.
Okay.
And I think the last thing I have for you is a list of high fiber foods. Because you were pretty low on the fiber, I just want to make sure that we have some source. And if you would like to, you can also take this heart healthy fat source for you. Maybe the next time you go to the grocery store, you can say, hey, I think I know which foods are good. Yeah. So I think that wraps it up for us.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
You have a great day.
Thank you. You too.